I have a torn rotator cuff, and I pulled that off. I've started pulling it off. Doctors didn't really, I don't think they like that, but they're not here. And I'm going to hold it in my right hand because that's okay. That's the way I was watching David. I said, I can do that. A couple weeks ago, I went up there and started preaching, and I still had that on. My first sermon after my surgery, and my wife and my son sitting back in the back, and I'm preaching, and my hands start moving. I'm not supposed to move the shoulder, and they're back there, and I'm thinking something's on my, and so I'm preaching and glancing, and every now and then just hope, a blind swipe to get it, and I had they just kept on till finally I just turned away from them and preached to the rest of the people. But I noticed David could hold this. I still will swing this hand, but if I have a mic and it hit me as I was watching David, I might not swing the hand. So I'm going to do it like this. I really appreciate. I came by Monday and David showed me around and told me about all your ministries and stuff, and it was exciting to hear and to see that and to go through your beautiful, beautiful building. I love your building. The cooks tonight were just awesome. The food, I wanted to tip them, and David said no, they'll start wanting that all the time if you do that. So I didn't do that. David said I'm one of the reasons that he's behind this pulpit, and for that I apologize to y'all. David is a whole lot like me, loves the Lord and loves basketball. I love the Lord more than basketball. Let's leave it there. But loved David and Susie. Y'all are so blessed to have them here, and I look around the auditorium and see Jimmy and Frank Collinsworth. I got to talk to him for a while, and Jerry and Lee and so many people in here I know, in Kimberly. Roger, I see you too. Yes, you're still moving. Roger, we've played basketball together for 20 years maybe, I guess. And this isn't part of the sermon. We may have to go late for me to tell this story. Roger came out. I don't know if you ever seen him play ball, but he dresses up for ball. And he had, I know you remember it, David, he'd taken Coca-Cola 2-liter bottles. What was it, covered his knees with them? Oh, his nose, because he got hit in the nose one time. He got hit in the nose. He had stuff on his knees, on his head, on his elbow. And all of us are just looking at him thinking, what's he got planned tonight? Y'all know John. John preached here, didn't he? Temple. And I've seen Roger take John to the ground. I mean, take him to the ground. And Roger's an aggressive little player. He's on my back one time in my backyard up at church. And I said, Roger, get off my back. And he just stays there. So I bowled him right good in the chest. And what's that? That's just me telling you, get off my back. And so he stayed off of it. But it's so good to be here tonight. You're a blessed group of people. I don't want to tell you my story. I thought about this. My story. No, it's not my story. I want to emulate Paul when Paul said, for me to preach is Christ. This is Christ's story in my life. I want to tell you, he's been in my life, forever. But this is a special time. I have coached at Ezel for 30 years and then Good Pastor, and now I'm looking forward to Nashville Christian. Through those years, the thing that I've had in common is my hatred for Lipscomb. I say that kindly. Any Lipscomb people here? Couple? Okay, let me explain it then. And I'm a Lipscomb graduate. But in playing ball against Ernie, Coach Smith, for 40 years now, and being rivals, and while at Ezel, and even at Good Pastor, but while at Ezel, every game was important. We played for first place all the time. And it was a huge rivalry going on between us and them. And so, in a very Christian, loving, Christ-like manner, I hate Lipscomb. I don't hate McPherson, who also has been here already, hasn't he? And I apologize for Mike, but Mike was at Lipscomb, and he asked me. We've been friends, co-workers 40 years too, and he said, "Won't you come on to Lipscomb?" I said, "Well, 2 reasons. I hate purple, and I hate Lipscomb." But he said, "Oh, you'll love it." And I said, "No, I know, because I've got as many friends over there as I do anywhere else. Being in the church work for all these years, it's just the Lipscomb in a ball game. It's just that rivalry that I tease about and mean it. We were playing them at Good Pasture in 2011, February 26th, I think, or the 28th. It was a region tournament. Loser goes home. Your season's over. I mean, you're over. Winner moves on, and we'll get to sub-state and then have the opportunity to go to the state. Important ball game. Boys aren't playing that night. It's an all-girls night. So it's at Lipscomb. They've bribed somebody to have it there or something, and so we're over at Lipscomb, and we're playing, and I've got the best girl on the courts on my team. She's tough, but after her, his next 5 are the best girls on the thing, and so all that means is, in basketball, my thinking is, if you've got the best player, you've got a shot. They might have that game, and you can win that game. Well, we're playing, and it's a big game, big time game, and Carriana's her name, and first quarter we're playing there, and the crowds are pretty nice crowds, Lipscomb and Good Pasture crowds, and the referee blows a whistle early first quarter, calls a foul on Carriana, my girl. And so I get up and I talk to him in the King James language and say, "What is wrongest with thouest? Art thou blind?" And he's a friend of mine now. He's a song leader up at Tusculum. He lead singing up there, member of the church. I don't know how faithful he is being a referee, but he's there. And so I'm talking to Terry because he's a friend. But I'm going to talk to him. What did you call? She didn't. Whatever it was a horrible call, in my opinion. And he just smiles and reports it, and he walks back, and I walk with him in fellowship. And I'm sharing with him my thoughts. We keep playing, and within a couple more minutes, whistle blows, got her again. 2 fouls in the first quarter. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And well, I've got to bring her out now. And so I bring her out, and she's sitting down, and I don't say anything to her because I'm too busy with Terry. What chance do we have now, man? You have killed us. You have ruined us. That killed us came back to bite me later. So we keep playing. We don't have a chance with her out, but we do. We keep playing. At halftime, it's an ugly game, and at halftime, it's 14-12. I'm not mad because my thinking is we're lucky. Now she plays. Now we can do what God wants us to do and win this thing, go represent our Lord. And so we're going down to the locker room, and I'm not mad. Hadn't been yelling. It's not one of those things where I'm jumping up and down and I'm all red in the face. I've done that before. This wasn't that. I go down, and at Lipscomb, you go down these steps, concrete steps. You turn, you go down some more concrete steps, and the locker room facilities down there, and we call it the dungeon. You go down to the dungeon. And we go in there, and we talk, but I'm not mad. Now Carriana's back, and everybody on our team's feeling good. And so we got it, and so let's go, and we start the trek back up the steps. I haven't hurt, no pain, anything like that. We start back up the steps. The horn goes off, which means they're getting ready to start. And so you, as a coach, you yell at your girls, go, 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 starters reporting, and they're running up the steps. I'm not going to run up the steps. I get up to the top of the steps and look, and the horn went off about a minute early. And so we still had a couple minutes left. And so I just stopped, and the girls get the basketball and start shooting, and I walk across the court, and I walk by the Lipscomb bench, and Coach Smith and Coach Carter, his assistant, and a friend of his brother's my assistant, and we've all been real tight for a long time. Not Ernie, but David and us, and Ernie. We've been friends in the fact that rivals, and so I walk by them, and David looks at me, and David says, "Man, this is an ugly game." 14-12 it was. Ugly game. And I said, "Just teasing. Yeah, it reminds me of some girls I dated in high school." I was just teasing. But I didn't want that to be the last joke I ever told on earth. I was afraid I was going to meet God with that. God said, "Come here, I want to ask something." What were you talking about fat people for? I'm not. I was teasing with a friend of mine. I'm not ugly. I'm not. Well, but I walked on by him, and Ernie's son ran by me, ball boy, and I patted him, said something to him. And when I got by the scores table, I had vertigo. If some people room goes round, mine rolled. And when it rolls, it pulls you with it, And if you've ever sort of lost your balance, you know how you'll reach out and touch something, not grab it, but just touch it, and it stabilizes you. I don't know why, but it does. And so I reached out and I touched the scores table and stabilized myself. And I thought to myself, I remember this clearly, what was that about? Because I hadn't hurt, wasn't upset. What was that about? And when I said that, the rest of this, I'm told, happened because I died right there. My body tightened up, and I fell straight back. First thing that hit the floor was the back of my head. Made that thump sound, And I'm told by the people who were there, I'm told by them who were there that you could hear it throughout the gymnasium. Now, it's halftime. People are, still trying to grab another hot dog, popcorn, Cokes, and they're going to the bathrooms, and stuff's still going. People are talking to each other and stuff. But they said that the sound of my head hitting made such a noise that everybody looked. Now, Peg said, my wife is a nurse, and she said she was watching me as I came across the street. She still idolizes me and watching me with that loving eyes, making sure I don't look at any other girl. And I'm coming across, not that. I'm coming across, and she said, something didn't look right, and she just watched me. And when I fell, she was the first one down on the floor to me. And a lot of stuff happened there. And I died right there at halftime at Lipscomb. Of all the places to die for me would be Lipscomb. Donnie, can you to die at Lipscomb? And so I'm laying there dead. I have died. And then, of course, they brought me back. But I won't tell you for the next week. I want to give you some things about God that I learned. A friend of mine said, "Man, you got to see your own funeral." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, you got to see your own funeral. You got to hear what everybody says about you and see all those who came. You're lucky. I said, I don't feel real lucky. But I got these three. I'm going to give you three things I got that over the next week. I think they're powerful. Not from me, they're from God. I think they're powerful. They all start with the letter P. I got to see the providence of God, His hand at work. And I'm going to tell you that. We teach, and it's easy to preach and stories where Christ healed and God did this, but to actually have it go on in our lives is an amazing thing, especially when you say and you realize that was God who did that. God just walked through my life. This providence of God. The week before, we were playing at Vol State for the district championship. And if I would have died at Vol State, they would have never gotten me alive. At Lipscomb, there was the defibrillator in the gym. Ball State wouldn't have known where one was. I would have just died right there. At Lipscomb, they had a girl or a teacher, Patricia Binkley. I don't know, Donnie, if you remember her or not from Easel, but she's over at Lipscomb now. But I've known her for so many years, but her job was set by them, and if they ever need it, you'd be ready and get that too. Well, she, who I'd known for years, ran out with the defibrillator when I died. Vol State, I'd have just been dead. I think God's hand was on this all the way through. I had to have quadruple bypass. They also found an aneurysm. And at first I thought, well, that's what this was all about. God was finding letting us find the aneurysm before it did something to me. And so I thanked God for that for a while until the whole thing started opening up and developing itself. The hand of God having me at Lipscomb, the defibrillator there. There were 4 nurses in the crowd that day. 2 on Good Pasture, 2 on Lipscomb. 3 of them were they worked in at the hospitals in the heart part of the hospital. They came running down, and I'm laying on a half court line. Peggy's already there to me, and they told me, and everywhere I go to preach, somebody in that auditorium, I don't care if it's in Columbia, at Columbia they lined up to tell me, I saw that game, I was there. And wherever I preach, someone comes up and says, I saw that, I was there at that game. And Peg was the first one down too, and they said you could hear. Someone else told me, he said, Joey, when I speak, they can't tell me more, and I've picked up more. They said, you could hear Peggy crying. And they're not boo-hooing, but crying my name out. The others gathered around. John Temple was right there because John was my assistant, and he was this close to me. Mike McPherson was right there. Mike had come up to me before the game. He was coaching Lipscomb at the time. He said, when this is all over, we'll go out and get something to eat, go to Cheesecake Factory or something. And I said, okay. I got a ball game. I don't really care about that. But, yeah, okay, Mike. That'd be good. We'll do that. It'd be fun. And he was there and some other coaches I knew and just a lot of people there. And as I laid there on the floor, the nurses came down. And a doctor was in the audience, too, Dr. Pilkington. He'd sent his kids to Good Pasture, and one of them, Dari, was a star at Good Pasture. But now she's the coach over at Lipscomb. In the middle school, and he's like 70 years old. And Dr. Pilkington, I asked him later, I said, why'd you come to the game? He didn't have anybody in that game. He said, I don't know, I just came. I have grown in my thinking to no longer just say things just happened. Boy, I was lucky that happened. He just came to the game. The nurses gathered around me and began to work. The defibrillator was brought in. It brought me back. And as they were working on me, the people in the auditorium, in the gym surrounding, stayed in there and was watching. And different ones told me, said, Joey, from different parts of the gym, they told me later, said we could hear them talking, the nurses and the doctor. We heard them say, he's not breathing. I don't get a pulse. We heard everything they were saying. And Peggy told me, she said, Joey, I told her that, and she said, Joey, it was like a trauma unit. She said, now, they never worked together, but they were working like a trauma unit right there on that floor at half court. And working together in unison to bring me back. Miss Crocker, one of the nurses, and I had coached her daughter. One of the nurses, when the EMT people got there and they took them off, she said she told me this. She said, I stood up. She said, it was so quiet, Coach, that when I stood up, I expected to see nobody. I thought everybody had snuck out. And she said, I looked around and the place was packed. She said, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that they had done it. Coach Carter, who I'd known for so many years and seen his kids grow up, and he told me, he said, I was standing there and his little daughter came up and she said, I'm afraid for Coach Spann. And David told her, he said, listen, if he lives, that's okay. And if he dies, that's okay. I don't want him doing my prayer, but I appreciated what he was saying. His wife, Angel, was one of the nurses working on me. She had gone into that zone that they go into. She didn't even know it was me. I've known her for 20 years. She came up and backed up, and David was right there. And she said, David, it's Joey. He said, yeah. She said, I didn't know it was him. She told him, she said, he ought to be dead. And David, who had wished that quite a few times himself through the years, David said, what do you mean? And she said, 95% of the people and this was her department, 95% of the people who had what he just had here, they don't live. They don't come back. And the 5% that do, they'll die at the hospital, and only a small percent of that 5 lives. And she told him, as they were taking me out, she said, he's a miracle. He ought to be dead. McPherson, Mike, I told this at his church, and he heard me tell it, and he corrected me. But I told him the way I tell it is better anyways. Mike, I'm going to tell you the way it really was, though. Mike came over to the emergency room, Vanderbilt, and they came and said everything had stabilized and stuff. And then he went to the Cheesecake Factory. What? I said, Mike, what? You went to the he said, well, I couldn't do anything. So I just went on over to the Cheesecake Factory. And I said, well, Mike, good night, son. He said, well, Joey, Miss Crocker, that nurse, she came in too. I said, well, that doesn't make me feel any better. The providence of God, I just saw his hand working. I told this, I said, I laid there and I was dead. And John Temple said, Joey, this was after I gave the talk at camp. He said, Joey, I was 6 feet from you. He said, I've been in the rooms when they've died before, in the hospital rooms. And they get that look on their face. He said, Joey, you had that look. He said, I knew you were gone. The providence of God put me in the right place where there was a woman whose job was to grab the defibrillator. The providence of God, who had 2 nurses over there, 3 of the nurses, they all worked at different hospitals. One of the nurses had retired and was a teacher, but she was still had her license, and all of them coming together. 2 of them didn't even have anybody in the game, just thought they would come. The doctor being there, Dr. Pilkington being there, what a blessing. And I gave this talk, and one of my girls came up to me afterwards, and she said, Coach, do you remember the horn? I said, what are you talking about? She said, remember the horn went off early? I said, oh, yeah. If that had happened while I was downstairs in the dungeon, they wouldn't have gotten down there to me. If that would have happened while I was on the top of those concrete steps and had fallen backwards there, it would have killed me. It was just, if the lady with the defibrillator had gone to the bathroom, little things. And yet here I was, and it was almost like God brought me to half court. Got everything set. You ready? You're all in here? Here we go. And it happened. The providence of God. His hand touching my life. The second thing is the power of prayer. the gym, and again, I was told this. Oh, they asked me, did you see a light? No, and that scares the fool out of me. I did tell one group, if it gets me more preaching assignments, I'll come up with a light. I can come up with a big old story. But no, I didn't see a light. And somebody said, oh, God's not through with you yet. I said, maybe just give me another chance, see the light. I'm going to have to do a little better than I've done. But the power of prayer in that gym that night with the Lipscomb side over there and the Good Pasture side over here, students and teachers and parents and I knew as many people on the Lipscomb side as I knew on the Good Pasture side. I've been in the ministry so long, and I've spoken at so many youth retreats and so many youth rallies and all the chapels and stuff, and I've just been blessed, and have coached so many kids, and we had so many come to our Bible camps. Inside that gym that night, they told me, they said everybody started praying. And the announcer took it and took the microphone and said and announced for them to. And this is what someone told me. See, did you hear the announcer actually announced for people to get in groups and pray? Now, what was a battleground just a few minutes earlier was Christians in prayer and praying mightily. And they told me, and I don't know about this, I'm not real big on social media. I think it's from Satan. No, I just don't know how to do it. But they told me it hit Facebook real quick, that people from there were calling other people and saying, you know, Joey's dying. He's on the court. And the word spread like wildfire. And one of my girls that had played for me and was playing at Lipscomb at that time, university, she was in a tournament in Georgia, and she got it. Word. She called back up immediately. And so many people had heard about it either on Twitter or Facebook or through email, some means that, you know, that I had died at Lipscomb. So many people were praying. In fact, when I went out afterwards and I started preaching at churches and again got back into speaking, every church I went, they would tell me, said, Joe, we had you in our prayer list here. You were in our bulletin. Some of them said we had you up on the sign. We were praying for you. And every place was telling me, we prayed for you. You were in our prayers. We were going before. And it was, I don't have any idea how many people. I've got to rest this arm, okay? Don't let me swing it. I told him at church, if I start swinging at things, just start saying amen. And that'll shock me. Control freak. No, I put it in my pocket. I've been married too long to play that game. The people were in prayer and praying about this. Coach Smith, Ernie had fallen to his knees, they said. I was lying right here, and he was just 6-8 feet away on his knees praying. When I told this, John Temple said, Joey, you're one of your best friends was just right up here praying too. He said, me. That's when he told me, he said, you were gone. McPherson said, hey, I was there too. I was praying. We were all praying. And everywhere I went, someone would tell me about the prayers that were going on my behalf. The Lipscomb team took my team down to the locker room. And I appreciate that so much. My girls told me this later. They said they took us downstairs and we, got in between each other and held hands and they prayed. And you think about it, my girls saw their coach die right in front of them. I mean, I died. And then I said that one time out loud. And it hit me. My wife saw her husband die right in front of her. And this was a hard. It was an interesting time. But the Lipscomb people praying there. The crowd was praying. People. My son said to me, and Michael's 30 years old. My son said, "Dad, do you think that it was because of prayer that you're still alive?" I said, "What are you talking about, Mike?" He said, "Well, maybe it wasn't God's plan to bring you back. Maybe this wasn't to let you die, bring you back. Maybe you were dying." And so many prayers went up. Do you think maybe the prayers changed his mind? Now, how do you answer that? I said, yeah. He's heard me preach. He knows I preach and teach and believe prayer. When I pray for someone to be healed, I believe God can do that. I believe He does that. And could God have had His mind changed by being bombarded by so many prayers at once? Well, sure. Or else, why pray, right? Why pray? And yet all these prayers being offered up on my behalf. Coach Smith on his knees. The PA announcer and the crowd having small group prayers throughout the gym. Twitter, Facebook, phones and texts encouraging people to pray. Lipscomb downstairs with my girls in the locker room praying. When I got better, that was in February, I went ahead and took my girls to summer camp. You know, I mean, basketball does come first. And so in June, we went to summer camp. Getting ready to play this team, and I don't know where they're even from. You know, it doesn't matter. We're just going to be playing summer league ball. And the ref's starting toward me. And so I reach out my hand a little farther than this. This is just as far as I reach right now. But I reach out my hand. This is that before I'll do the left hand. Reach out. Hey, how you doing? He said, "Coach, good to have you here today." I said, "Thank you. I'm looking forward to the game." You know, I'm thinking it's just that meeting. Because I've been coaching a long time. I know these guys. I don't know this guy, though. But he knows me. You know, you've seen someone come up to you and you can tell they know you, but you can't think who in the world they are. And I've always told somebody, if the longer my hey is, the less I know who you are. But I shook his hand, and he said, "Man, it's good to have you here today, Coach." I said, "Thank you. Looking forward to it." And then he took that other hand and did that clasp. Now, I've never had a ref do that, but he clasped my hand, and I was backing up and stopped. And he said, "No, Coach. We were praying for you. At my church, we were praying for you. I've prayed so many prayers." And your body language change. I've got to coach body language. I can go into a coach's mentality, and my attitude changes, and it just melted. And I just thank you. Thank you so much. He said, "Man, we're glad you're here. Prayed for you, brother. Have a good game, Coach." And I turned to John Temple and I said, "Now, how can I coach a game with this referee? Hey, are you blind, ref?" "No, I can't say anything to him." "Hey, good call, good call." You know, I said, "He has handcuffed me." But there he is praying for me. Do I think prayer changed God's mind? Well, how do I know? But I know it can. Is it possible it did? Sure. The power of prayer is a powerful, powerful tool. The third P, providence of God, put me right where He wanted me. Hey, let me say this real quick. God putting us right where He wants us to be. I've grown up, you know, going to church my whole life and been in the ministry 40 years, And I really didn't emphasize that a whole lot. Now when I talk to teenagers, I'd tell them, maybe you're in that Bible class, maybe you're in that English class to sit beside that person, not because this is honor English and you need this thing, but because that person you're sitting by needs you to lead them to Christ. Maybe that's why you're here. And I do think if we thought that way, we'd be a much more powerful tool in the hand of Christ. That if I'm here, placed by God for a reason. I don't know where you work. I don't know where you go to school. I don't know those things. But I know this. If you thought God had a hand in putting you there, you'd do it better. And we would be ready to be a tool for God. I'd have my head on a swivel, looking, seeing, I wonder what God wanted me to do. Who is it He has me here for? I have my entire ministry tried to make a difference in people's lives that I've come in contact with. And they in turn, like David, golly, I'm so proud of him. I'd have lost that bet, Susie. But then you see them. And Woody at Biggs was in that group with me, and McPherson and all of us. We just spent our ministry trying to help people be what God wanted them to be. The providence of God, the power of prayer, and the last P is the power of love. The power of love. In the hospital at Vanderbilt, when you walk in that bottom floor, most of you have been to Vanderbilt, and you walk in, it looks about this big, maybe not quite this big. They told me all this, and the doctor told me later, same thing, but they told me, they said, Joey, so many people came there that night. It was Friday night, so many people came there that night that they had to come down and ask everyone for the Spann family needs to go to the cafeteria, and it emptied out the place. They said they needed room for other people. I told that in front of Dr. Pilkington, and Dr. Pilkington said, Joey, they emptied it out twice. It filled back up, and they emptied it again. I'm in my room. Of course, I'm out of it. They don't do surgery Friday night. They stabilize me. Saturday, I go through all my surgery stuff, and the people start coming in. And I don't remember. Morphine is an amazing thing. And I had so many people visit me. Andy Connolly. Do y'all know Andy? Andy called me up in August of that year after all this. He said, all right, brother. You coming tonight? I said, coming where? You're preaching at my church. So what do you mean, Andy? He said, you don't remember when you were in the hospital? I told you, and you said, yeah, you do it. I said, Andy, I was on morphine. No, I don't remember it. And I got a guest speaker at my place real quick and went out there. But you don't sign someone up on morphine. But I did learn this. If you didn't come and see me, just tell me at the door you did. I don't have a clue. I remember some coming in, and there was a lot. They said that they started lining up to come in, and they sent them in 2 by 2. And they have that. It's one of the ICU, CCU, one of those units, and the doors there, and you can't go back there. And all my group was lined up in so big a line, they pushed their way in that door, and lined up down that wall. And they said those nurses would give them looks. You've seen those looks from the nurses. You just say, don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. Act like you're supposed to be here. And they lined up inside that, down that wall, right up to my room. And someone came in and said, Joe, it looks like Noah's Ark out there. And the nurse stuck her head in. And she said, and this is honest goodness truth, Peggy and them were in there, and they laughed when she said she stuck her head in between guests. And she said, who are you? And I said, God, it scared me a little bit. My nurse not knowing who I am. You want them to know who you are. Who are you? I said, I'm sorry. Who are you? Who are you? A rock star? I said, No. She said, well, who are all these people? I said, I don't know. I said, I've been blessed by God. I've been put in positions where I could meet a lot of people. They said that night when they came, the referees, one guy, construction guy, stopped my son as he was hurrying in. And he said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who's in there? And Mike said, what do you mean? And he told him, said, he's seen referees go in. He's seen players from Nashville Christian go in. He's seen players from Franklin Road go in. Players from other schools go in their uniforms Friday night. He said, who is in there? I told the nurse, I said, I can't take visitors much. Let's just do 5 minutes at a time. And then you stick your head in, because I can't say go. And so she said, okay. And so they sent the next two in. They were two of my ball players from Ezel when we won the state. And they'd come to see me. And I told them, we started talking. The nurse sticks her head in and says, okay, ladies, you need to go. I said, no, they don't need to go. Oh, yes, Mr. Spann, they need to go. I said, no, they don't need to go. No. And so they stayed a little while longer. But they finally had to just stop them from coming in. When I got home, I had so many letters and cards sent to me. And I read every one of them, because you never know. There could be money in those things. And so, I just be honest. You never know. And so those cards came in, and I loved it so much. They had to continue the ball game. I didn't tell you this. I wished I had this suit now. It was a dark blue, orange pinstripe, 3-piece suit. Now I'm at Nashville Christian, and I don't have this. Because of that night, when I went down, they cut my pants off of me. Right? 2 or 3 seconds at the max to unfasten them and pull them down? Why did you cut my pants? My suit pants, which runs a suit. My jacket and vest still in the closet. No pants. Michael, my son, said, Dad, do you remember the first thing you said to me when I got to the hospital? Because Michael's like me, he sort of does like to dress up. And he said, do you remember the first thing you said to me when I got to the hospital? I said, no, what? I don't remember. He said, son, they cut my pants. First thing that I remember after I died, and I couldn't remember if it was rolling on the gurney out of the gym or in the hallway at the hospital. I just remember rolling on the gurney and thinking this, honest goodness, crossed my heart. We were ahead 14-12. That's all right. If I've got to go and I'm beating Lipscomb 14-12, I can go like that. I know when I was at Lipscomb, I told him, I said, I can walk across heaven and come across Coach Smith and smile at him and say, 14-12, baby, we had you. And then I told him, if Coach Smith makes it to heaven. I'm not real sure about Ernie. But it was an amazing thing. Ernie was a real tense coach. And I was too. You beat me, I'll shake your hand, we'll laugh and talk a little bit about it. You beat Ernie, he'll shake your hand and he's off. And he's mad and he's up against a wall somewhere, him and his assistant, and he's talking and stuff, and his world has ended. Well, that night, the next time we played him at Good Pasture the next year, we beat them. And I run into him in the hallway, and he's at the concession stand buying stuff. I said, what? He never. And he said, hey, Joey, and starts talking. We start talking, and stuff, and he's laughing. And I asked the assistant coach, actually the doctor's daughter, Dari. I said, Dari, has Ernie changed? She said, oh, yeah. Ever since that night, that game. I said, man, that's amazing. She said, Joey, we all changed. We all changed. Changed every one of us. That power of love. We had to play them on Sunday. Of course, I couldn't go. and I teased Ernie and them about this. They practiced on Saturday with me in heart surgery. My girls are at the hospital. They're practicing. That's not fair. But they went ahead and practiced, and they beat us on Sunday. And one of my girls on their way to the gym pulled into the hospital and came up here. And I remember coming in and seeing her, Macy, sweet little girl. And she bent down. She said, Coach Spann, we're going to play Lipscomb now. I said, that's good, huh? She said, we're going to beat them for you. And I said, sweetheart, come here. And she got close. I said, I don't care if you win or lose, sweetheart. I died. Come on. Just go and have fun. Okay? And they went, and she said, we're dedicating it to you. And then they lost. We talked about that when I ran them later. No, I didn't do that to them. That power of love. They said that when they went to the gym. On Friday night when we went, they had all these banners up. Mustangs eat cougar meat and all those type of competitive, you know. They said on Sunday they'd taken all them down. All of them. They brought me one that they put up like 6 foot long, and they said this was the type of, that was all over the gym. It said on there, now I unrolled it and looked at it, we love you, Coach Spann. Now I'm telling you, that's emotional to me. That touches that string, because that's not the way we really, you know, we didn't really live like that. We'd pass each other, hey. Now they have all in there. We're praying for you. We love you, Coach Spann. That power of love. Got a call from the city council. Charlie Tigard called me. He was a member of the council, and he's a referee too. And Charlie said, we want to honor you, Joey, with the council. I said, for what, Charlie? I died. That's all I did. I just died. He said, no, we're trying to get a defibrillator bill passed. Will you come? I said, yeah, I'll come do that. He said, we're going to read a proclamation honoring you. And some of the Lipscomb people will be there, nurses. So I got there. TV cameras. I wasn't ready for that. TV cameras. The council. The people who are getting ready to be mad at the council are all sitting in the audience. I'm standing there. And I understand Mike Roller comes to church here. I didn't think he went anywhere. Coach Roller, Mike was standing next to me, and the doctors, the nurses, and all. And so Charlie gets up and he starts reading this plaque. We're standing there, TV cameras on us. As of on a certain date, Coach Joey Spann of Good Pasture had a cardiac arrest and he died. And because of the actions of Lipscomb, so we want to honor Lipscomb for their quick response, and we want to honor Lipscomb for about 6 times. They said, we want to honor Lipscomb. And I've been over to Mike, and I said, hey, Mike, if I'd known that, if I'd read that first, I wouldn't have even come. But I looked over at Mike and I said, hey, Mike, TV cameras there. And Mike, anything I can do to honor Lipscomb, let me know, buddy. If you need me to die again, you call, I'll be there. Anything that lifts up Lipscomb, I'm in on. And he laughed and we laughed. And I went back to him a little more serious. And I said, we're really not going to have a rival again, are we? He said, not as long as your coach there. And every game since then has been different. It's just different. I think not because we're afraid of dying, but we all now realize the real importance of what we're doing and what really is the thing that stands out the most. And I'm going to be through here just 1 second. Let me close this with you. The power of love. All those people, all those prayers, all those calls. I went to Good Pasture 2 weeks later to sort of let them know how I was doing, talk to the students. TV cameras were there, and they filmed it. And they came up to me afterwards and said, can we ask you a couple of questions? I said, sure. They said, and so they okay, you ready? And they turn the camera on, and she says, Coach, 95%, gives me the same figures that the nurse had. 95% of the people die who had what you had, and 5% of the others get to the hospital, and only less than 1% of them live. How do you feel being that special in that special group? And I said, well, you won't put this on TV, but I've always been part of that special group. I'm a Christian. My God has always watched over me. I've been my entire life in that special group. And they didn't put that on TV, but they did put this. I said it was a neat thing. I teach and I preach about God's hand touching you, touching your lives. I said, but it was a neat thing to actually look back and say, that was God who touched me. That was God. Every place I've gone, someone has come up to me. Not someone, sometimes a line. Every place I go. And when I'm through telling what happened to me, they line up and they tell me something similar that happened to them or their loved one. Over and over and over. Different cities, different churches. And it wasn't till about 3-4 churches ago that something new hit me. This isn't unusual that this happened to me. Y'all, God's touching His people all over the place. In every church I go to, God has touched them and has healed them and has delivered them. And they've told me so many great stories. And what I share with you is the fact that our God is alive and He works today in and through His people. And I just thank God for that. David, you want to come on up? Thank you very much for listening tonight.